Hi, my name is Brenda Williams. I'm 62 years old. I'm an actor, director, teacher, and I am an artist.
Miss Brenda Williams, thank you so much for joining us on Plugged In. I'm so excited to be able to sit with you today.
Yeah, sort of. From
Yeah.
miles and miles away.
The way anybody sits with anybody in Corona times.
Yeah.
How are things on your end? How are you doing? How are you holding up inside the house and staying quarantined?
Uh, just trying to keep busy. I've been doing a lot of work in the yard, you know me and digging in the dirt. It's
Right.
therapy.
Yeah.
So been working a lot in the yard and watching a lot of TV and playing on the computer a lot, talking to the cat. She
That's a
doesn't
whole
she doesn't answer back usually, so that's good.
that should be a whole reality TV show right there.
Well, it could be.
Well, as is the practice here, we're always trying to kind of look into these artists that we respect and to kind of follow their journey. I didn't get my wine today. I needed to get wine. I'll have to do that maybe at a break. Um, I just want to start with origin story because I think that's such an important part of every artist and where they come from. And I know that your story was relatively, was a really supportive environment. Tell me about more. Tell me about mom and dad. Tell me about the environment in which Brenda Williams was reared.
I grew up the youngest of four. My father was a long distance truck driver. He would leave the house on Sunday nights and drive to Los Angeles and back and be back on Fridays.
Hmm.
So mom was basically a single parent throughout the week. When dad got home, we weren't allowed to be in the house most of the time because mom and dad had a little bit of catching up to do. So we were sent out of the house, but yeah, and he kept doing that until I was 11, and he started having a lot of heart trouble, and he had to finally retire once I was 11.
Mhm.
Um, Mom still was basically, she went to work as the single breadwinner. Uh, they encouraged me to be as nutsoid as I wanted to be. They knew that as soon as I knew what being an actor was, is that that's what I wanted to be.
Right.
And they encouraged that. They allowed me to be in shows and starting at 6 years old. Uh, my aunt helped put me into acting classes at the old Mummers Theater when I was 11.
Mhm.
And dad passed away when I was 16. I was the only kid left at home at that point.
Right.
So it was rough. It was rough for a few years, but I really found solace and also a purpose in theater.
Right.
I started studying very, very hard at that point. I was in high school, and losing my dad helped me really connect with theater and characterization and my emotions.
Right. Right.
And that's about it. I was the only kid to go to college out of the
Out
four.
of before, yeah.
I went to OU and studied theater, obviously, and the rest, as they say, is not really history.
Well, it's because a lot of us, a lot of the people that I've had a chance to talk to on Plugged In have come from working class backgrounds, and I find it kind of surprising because the story that is told is that working class people aren't really that supportive of theater arts. But here you've got a dad who's a long distance truck driver. You've got a mom who is essentially a stay at home mom for the first portion or part time for at least a part of that. You've got four kids in your household, and yet you're encouraged to pursue this kind of odd calling.
Yeah, well, growing up, I mean, mom, uh, well, dad was on his trip. She managed the local YMCA,
Okay.
um, starting when I was still in grade school. And they had put my oldest brother into drum lessons. He was a drummer. He had
Mm-hmm.
his own garage band. My
Cool.
sister took violin lessons. My other brother was a visual artist, and they all gave it up. So that by the time I came along, and I was the one that wanted the dance lessons, wanted the music lessons, was dying to learn to play the piano, was dying to take dance classes. They were like, "Yeah, you'll just quit after a while." And it wasn't until my aunt Karen, who was a local theater reviewer for the Norman Transcript. She did all of the OU productions,
Okay.
and she took me to all of these productions. And she uh, she knew that I was extremely interested in it, and so she put me into the lessons at the Mummers Theater, and I stuck with it.
Mm.
And once my mom and dad got an eye of that, they were like, "Okay, we've lost her. She's gone.
Right.
We're going to be looking at her in shows for the rest of our lives." And they were.
Yeah.
Except my dad. My dad never got a chance to see me perform.
Really.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Wow. I am almost certain that he is a huge part of not only why you do it, but the reason that you're so successful. I think we've hit on that
Oh,
from
I
time
can
to
tell you,
time.
when I did Best Little Whorehouse at the Pollard, he was there. I
Yeah.
know he was there, and he was really happy because he loved country music and he loved lady country music singers. So I know he was there.
Ah, which informs me a little bit about some of your choices that you're really fond of, because of course you've spent some time with always Patsy Cline and
Yeah,
yeah, so that
yeah,
informs a good deal.
yeah. We always had. You knew it was going to be quite the weekend when you would come in on Friday when Dad got home, and there was a bottle of alcohol in a brown paper sack sitting on the dining room table, and Glenn Miller was on the stereo,
Okay.
and Mom and Dad were jitterbugging in their bedroom getting ready to go out to the Diamond Ballroom to go dancing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
So
that happened a lot.
it really was an environment that was very, informative of music and encouraging of these various artists. I mean, you got a brother who's a musician or who was being kind of trained up early as a drummer, and that's maybe that's not a musician, um, a drummer, and that's a special set of circumstances within itself because it's loud and it's in the house. But you've got a violinist, and then you come along and are the one who takes to it and kind of just stays after it. You at Mummers, you're training there. Talk to me a little bit about what that early exposure was, because uh, some of us have talked about this. I didn't do theater lessons until high school. I didn't really come into contact with that. What was that like? What was that foundation that they're establishing there at Mummers?
Oh, it was great because I was just heading into middle school, and you know how goofy and awkward you are in middle school,
Right,
and I felt like I was something special. I felt just because I had this outlet.
right.
I got to go to my classes 2 and 3 times a week, and my friends got tired of listening to me talk about my classes. They were so exciting because I'd never experienced anything like that. I'd never dealt with any kind of improvisation or any kind of real character work, and suddenly I was in this environment in a real theater
Right,
being
right.
taught by real professionals, and I felt like I had been given the biggest present
Wow.
that I had ever gotten. It was wonderful. I loved it. I spent a couple of years doing that, and then we had to stop for a while. And then as soon as I got into high school, I took every theater class I could.
Right, right. Yeah, and I think it's a unique experience that everybody doesn't get a chance to have, because obviously it's not the case anymore where it exists in a public school. You certainly don't see that at the primary level. And so for a middle schooler who is already dealing with the fact that, if it's like anybody else, you're odd, you're different, you like different things, you like plays and everybody else likes this. And so this has got to feel a little bit like, no, I'm not the only oddball. There's a whole classroom full of them.
Yeah, it was great. And we got to do shows, and at the same time, I was going as often as I could with my aunt to see these plays at OU.
Right.
And so by the time I got to high school, OU was my goal.
Yeah. You had already made that decision.
I'd already made that decision. I received a full ride scholarship to Oklahoma College of Science and Arts in Chickasha.
Okay.
And I turned it down to go to OU.
Not having it.
I didn't want to be, the whole big fish, little pond. I wanted that. I wanted what I'd seen on stage. I wanted Charles Suggs Sr. to teach me. I wanted to work with Sandy Williams and Mickey Skeen. I wanted that life.
Right.
And I had already been so exposed to it that I felt like I knew these people. And when I walked into school, I acted like I knew these people. They were like, "What are you?" And get away from me right now.
Who are you, little person?
Yeah.
What were you seeing? What were you seeing on the OU stage? Just out of curiosity, what were the kind of shows that you were seeing that were informing?
They used to do a thing called Southwest Repertory where they did several shows in the summer. And I saw just amazing productions of The Three Musketeers and Romeo and Juliet, As You Like It, Hamlet. One of my favorite shows that I saw there was Mark Houston, a late actor and playwright, had written a musical version of The Wizard of Id, the comic strip, The Wizard of Id. And Mickey Skeen was in it, and Sandy Williams was in it, and all these wonderful people were in this musical, and the musical was hysterical. I think I saw it like 3 or 4 times.
Wow.
It was just amazing. Just everything I saw, it was so big and bright and huge. Right. And yet you felt like they were only performing for you. Right. And they just totally sucked me into everything.
And this is after you've been the last child. I mean, just putting it together, you're the youngest in this house of what I assume must be pretty big personalities.
Oh, a little. Yeah, a little bit.
You've got mom who,
force of nature.
Could change the gravitational pull of a room. I can attest to that.
And if you can imagine, my father was exactly like her.
Wow. Okay, got it.
They were loud and they were funny, and they fought hard. They loved harder.
Yeah. And so I wonder, because obviously you're so much that in your work. You are such a big force of nature in your work, but you can be kind of quiet and subdued in life. I wonder, is that part of why the theater so resonated with you? Because it was a place for you to be big where you might not otherwise be that big in your family, because they're all big personalities.
Yeah, it was a fight to be heard. I guarantee that. But I think so. And I do get introspective sometimes. I sometimes I'm just a watcher.
Right.
I just like to watch what's going on and listen to what's happening around me. I don't feel like I've got to be on all of the time. Sure. When I was younger, I did feel that way, but age and situations get you to the point where, no, that's too much work. Let me just listen to you. But theater was, I always say it's you spend your life trying on other lives. and seeing yourself through these other people. So, of course, you're going to pull things from your own personality, but also you're going to find things out about yourself you never knew was in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, theater's my home.
Well, we're grateful that you decided to make it your home, because I for one got to watch you as I was doing my early training and going, hey, there's somebody I need to figure out what they got going and get a couple of tips from. So I'm curious, although you've kind of already alluded to it, I think that every performer, every artist hits a place where there's a point of no return. There's nothing else to do. You've got to do this for your living. You got to find some way to make that work. Do you remember that moment for you? Do you remember deciding this is it? This is all I'm going to focus
No.
on? Wow.
I don't. I mean, I know that I started teaching full time, and yet I never stopped doing theater.
Right. Right.
And yeah, every time I've ever had to have the job to make the bills, and God knows we all have to do that.
Sure.
I I can't let that go. I can't let the theater part go.
Wow. Yeah.
It'll always be part of me. I'll be doing it until they drag me off the stage, I'm sure. As long as I can get work, I'm going to take work.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, because you immediately went to OU and to the BFA program, and you're dealing with Charles Suggs Sr., and you're in classes with, if I'm not mistaken, I mean, you've got that whole Sue Ellen Ryman and um, Bernard Jones. I mean, that whole group of people who was there at that
Yeah.
same time, and you guys are producing theater. And I'm not sure if this is the same time, but you not only are you producing theater, but because Charles Suggs has all these connections, you're working with icons, like
Yeah.
serious players.
Yeah.
Just like an
Big time.
Altown. There, you guys did an Altown.
Yeah. We did Our Town with Lou Ayres,
Yeah.
and I was a freshman at the time, and I did. Usually freshmen don't make the main stage.
Right.
I made the main stage. I was one of the dead people at the end, and I was at the wedding, so it wasn't like a huge part.
Sure.
But I got to be on that stage,
Yeah.
and I got to be on the front row of the dead people.
Yeah.
So I was pretty dang pumped about that. But just to be in the rehearsals and watch not only how Mr. Suggs directed, but how everyone else heard him and what they did with his direction.
Mm-hmm.
That was another one of those shut up and listen, pay attention to what's going on, because that was as big of a lesson as anything I ever got in the classroom.
Right.
And every time I was in a show, or they had a program where the seniors directed one act and the underclassmen were in it. And so again, I did a ton of those. And I really learned how one of the first ones I did, we rehearsed it. It went beautifully, and I got in front of the audience and got my first laugh, and then I started playing a little too big.
Gotcha.
I started fishing for those laughter. I started overcompensating, doing a little bit more, and I got reamed for it. I got my ass handed to me, quite honestly, in critiques. But I learned.
Right.
I learned, don't do the work you're supposed to do.
Right.
Not the work your head is telling you, hey, go get that extra laugh. No, don't do that.
Yeah.
Because I realized that it's not just me out there.
Right. Right. And you that for sure, I know that you carried with you, because you exhibit a specific type of focus in the rehearsal room. First of all, and I think this is not, probably not a new thing for you. You're such a you're such an almost academic comedian. Like you're gonna really kind of examine the pieces and then deliver the laugh. Watching you do it, I remember specifically most recently watching you in Disaster, and watching you kind of um, pull things out and pull things out until you've got it honed down to this very specific joke, and it works really well. And then in the rehearsal room, you're trying extensions on that idea. But that's craft. That's not of course it's natural ability, but it's also craft. Were you developing that there? Was that when that started to take place, or did that happen later?
Oh, no, of course, it started there. And it took many years to get to the point to where I could kind of step outside myself and see what I'm doing
Right.
and pay attention to what I'm doing. A lot of it is also, a lot of my acting is by accident. I just try to say the words and tell the truth and be the character, and somebody will go, "Oh my God, that was hysterical. What did you?" And I have no idea what I just did.
Gotcha.
So at that point, I started thinking, okay, now you need to start paying attention to what you're doing. Start getting case in point. It was in Best Little Whorehouse. We did a run through of a song, and people were just losing their stuff over it. Thought it was hysterical. I had no idea what I had done that was so funny.
Right.
I was just playing the song,
Right.
just doing it, and I really had to start working on hearing myself and paying attention to what I'm doing, not to the exclusion of the other actors,
Right. Right.
but to the inclusion of the other actors.
Right.
Because a lot of what I get and what happens for me comes from what other people are giving me to work with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was one of those things where you don't want to not be able to reproduce what you're doing, but you're
Right.
focused in what's happening, and so you're not paying attention to what you're doing per se, or hadn't been.
You're right.
Yeah, that's
So
that's
that takes a while. It takes a while to get to the point, and I think directing helped me with that.
okay.
Directing helped a lot with that, of being able to pull things out of actors. Also helped me be able to pull things and remember things that I was doing as well.
Right. So you in this program. OU is obviously very good for you. It forms relationships that you hold dear to even to this day, I would imagine. And then you're starting to move towards the first steps of your career, which take you to the alley. Um,
Hmm. Alley
um,
theater, yes.
how does that expand upon what you've already been doing? How does that change your course?
Um, it taught me how to be a professional actor.
Okay.
Before then, I wouldn't have been able to tell you what made a good headshot. I wouldn't have been able to put together a resume. Those were things that we weren't taught at that time.
Okay.
Um, we were taught everything else, but those were things that were just not taught. So at the Alley Theater, you are having workshops with the casting director, which shows you what good headshots look like. They have a professional photographer on staff who would take photos of you and let you know what is going to be your best look. They taught us how to um, put decent resumes together. They taught us about auditioning. They also afforded us opportunities that you'd never get anywhere else. They got us a master tap class with Donald O'Connor, who happened to be coming through town on a road show of Showboat.
Oh,
We got a master tap class with him. We got a mime class with Mum and Shots, the
wow.
mime troupe.
Yeah.
Anybody that came through, Alan Ackborn, the
The
playwright,
playwright,
brought
yeah.
his company through, and we tech crewed his people
Right.
and got to watch them in rehearsals and play around with them. They had a little improv session with us. There were improv people that came in, plus there were a couple of improv clubs in town that we got to go out and see and audition for. We couldn't work there, but we got to go
Right.
and try it. So basically, it taught me how to be what you have to do. You know how to act. You've got the drive. You've got the desire. Now, how do you get a job?
Right. Right.
And that's what they taught us, is
Okay.
how to get the job.
Yeah, and you stayed you stayed there with was that a season?
Yeah, it was a full season. We were, yeah, the full season, and we got to work quite a bit. They had specific programs for us. We did a children's theater. We did a couple of children's shows, and we had a lunchtime theater where people from it was downtown Houston, so that obviously there were a lot of business people, and they would wander in and catch a show that we were doing.
Right.
So we got to do that. But yeah,
And
it was
and
it was a good time. I can't really say I loved the town, but I loved the theater.
yeah.
I felt like they gave us something. Well, they gave me something I hadn't had before, which was that professional theater.
And it was part of your decision to want to move to Dallas, right?
Yeah, a lot was happening in Dallas in the 80s. Dallas, the TV series, was being shot there.
Right.
Lots and lots and lots of theater. And I had friends there. So after Houston, I went home. I worked for a year to get the money, and then I moved. And I had my equity card, and I am in my early 20s,
Mhm.
and no one would hire me because I am a character actor.
Right.
And why
In your early
hire
20s.
a 20-year-old equity card holder to play a specific role when you can get someone that
Of
age
the age, yeah.
without the card? Yeah, it was rough. It was Dallas was rough. I had a lovely time in opposition of Houston. I loved the town.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really love the theater scene. It was so hard to break into.
Right.
Um, a friend of mine and I decided that we looked around and we saw that all these married couples were getting parts together. It was a big thing. And we thought, let's get married. And then we thought, that's really stupid. That's that.
Glad you came to that understanding.
Yeah, and it was just tough to get. I had to make my own opportunities. In
Right.
other words, so I started. I produced my own equity showcase, and I did lots of work with agents. I did Dallas the TV series at least half a dozen times. I was in the original movie RoboCop, uh, until they snipped me right out. But the check cleared. The check did clear,
All that
and it was
matters.
a good one. It was a fine check. But yeah, I had to go make my own opportunities. They decided, for some ungodly reason, that my agent sent me on a national commercial for Pepsi, and it was all these dancers, and they were doing these 50 styles dance. Well, I knew the dances. I could do the dancer. I could do all dancing, but
Mhm.
I'm walking in there and I'm looking at 5 and 6 feet women that are gorgeous, and men that are their size, and I walk in and I'm 2 inches tall and in sweats, but I made it to final callbacks.
Awesome.
I did make it to final callbacks. And then I got out of there and got in the car, and I laughed my ass off all the way back home, just thinking, I cannot believe I spent an entire day with these beautiful dancers, and I managed to bump most of them off the plate.
Right. I think that's a
Still did a good job, but I
yeah,
got
well, I
close.
mean, yeah. I mean, but I think that's
It's
such
the
a
little victories.
yeah. And it's an important story to tell because so often if I'm putting myself in the shoes of what the people I think are watching this, the young lady I think who is watching this, the young man who is watching it, and they're going, well, it's Brenda Williams. Of course she worked. Of course she did this because she does, and she's the funniest.
Oh,
But they
not
don't
all the
know.
time. Not all the time. I struggled. I really struggled for work.
Yeah.
I really, really did.
You're a
A lot of
character
the
actor?
I've been a character actor since I was in grade school. You know,
Right.
uh, my big high school performance was as Aunt Eller in Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
Every part I played from it at OU was much older than me. I didn't play a part my age until I was at the Pollard Theater.
Wow.
And it was about 6, 8 years into my reign at the Pollard before I played somebody basically my own age.
Wow.
I was always older or much younger or a
You're add,
dog.
you're adding Clown White and lines in every
I
show
tell you,
until you hit, yeah.
but I'm
Yeah.
good at it. I'm really
So,
good at it.
yeah, I hope that I hope that the young actors are hearing that story from your point of view. And then more importantly, hearing you go, I didn't get crazy down about it. I went and found a way to create some opportunities for myself.
Yeah, that's what you have to do. If you're really serious about it, you go find somewhere to work.
Right.
There's always somewhere. I mean, I've done a lot of community theater. I've done a lot of sit around in somebody's living room and read plays, making plans. I eventually got into improv for an outlet to just see what would happen. So, you know, sometimes you have to make the work. But the biggest thing is if if you love it and you want it, you can't give up on it.
Mm.
The problem is that as an actor, you are your toolbox. And it is hard. It is extremely hard not to take rejection as a personal affront, as you're being insulted, you're being rejected. It's so difficult to do that. And I'm not saying that I didn't go through that because I certainly did. But at some point, you have to realize I know who I am and I know what I'm bringing to the table.
Mhm.
If it's not for you, it's not for you. So I'm going to go find some place where it is.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
All you can do to keep yourself from going crazy.
Yeah. But we need to put that on the reel, on the clip, because you could hear that over and over and it still won't convince you not to take it personally, but to hear people that you respect go, it's not about you, and you have to find a way to move on and go to the next
Oh,
gig.
I can't begin to tell you how many times I sat in the car after an audition and cried.
Right.
And times that I thought, I'm just going to quit.
Right.
I'm just going to quit. And then after I had the good cry, I said, you're not going to quit. There's no way you can quit. This is
Right.
you. This is your life.
That's all there is
This
there.
is what you are going to be known for when you're gone.
Right.
Hopefully.
So,
I hope.
long from now, but for sure. Well, and then so you've spent this time, you're doing, you're getting bits in Dallas because you do Dallas the show, you do the
Yeah.
movie, you do RoboCop, you're making opportunities. You end up making your way back to Oklahoma and then kind of finding the ground floor of two theater companies, essentially.
Yeah. When I was working in Dallas, I was working a temp job for Mobil Oil. And it was just at the time that the oil crunch hit. Everything fell out. And I was looking around this office, and as the oil prices went further and further down, people would just, without even being told, they would start packing up their desks.
Wow. Wow.
And RoboCop was the last thing I did. I finished out the weekend doing that, packed everything that would fit into my little Chevette, and I drove home.
Yeah.
Thought I'm going to take a little bit of time, regroup, see what's going to happen. I got home and saw in the newspaper that they were auditioning for Rocky Horror at Carpenter Square.
Okay.
So I went and I got cast. Met all of these people: Ellen Baird, Ben Williams, David Dobson, David Schuler, all of these people that are so much a big part of my life.
Right.
when that came to a close, I auditioned for Street Players in Norman.
Right.
It was a touring company, but they also did original plays, and got into that company, stayed
Yeah.
in that company. While I was there, they were auditioning for the Pollard. I came up and auditioned for the Pollard.
Man.
So thank God, thank
Right.
God that all that happened, because that all just led me straight to the Pollard, which was the best thing that happened to me.
Well, and I mean, it was just it was right after that period of time when you're struggling in Dallas. You're doing the temp job, you know, and that's thankfully oil money is good money at the time, so you're able to go out and audition. But then you just bang, 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 just hitting them right after each other.
Yeah, I
You go
got
back.
really lucky.
Yeah.
I got really, really lucky. I just landed job, job, job. And then with Pollard, 16 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And a founding member of the company. I mean, this was a brand new idea. They were going to do a resident company in the middle of Guthrie, Oklahoma. You're meeting up with Charles Suggs the second, the
Uh-huh.
junior of the college professor. You're in the company with one, two, I'm trying to think how many OU graduates from around the same time: Mickey Skeen, James Ong, Donna Dixon, all OU guys.
Yeah,
You're building this company in the middle of nowhere that on paper doesn't seem like it has a prayer to work, and yet
it did.
it does. It works completely, and you get state funding, and the state is funneling money through Langston University, and so you've got teaching assistant jobs, and you're building this company to what it's becoming now, you know, what it is now. And you do, I mean, a large part of your resume there,
Yeah.
and not just being one type of thing. You ran the gamut.
No, I would think that in the 16 years I was there, I acted and or directed, because sometimes I was in the shows that I had to direct. Uh, over 150 shows.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think
And
about,
you know, you remember those days, those stage 2 days when
oh,
you were, I would be walking around with 3 and 4 different scripts in my bag.
yeah, yeah.
One I was doing, one I was directing, one I was about to do, one that was coming up. I mean, that was some exciting stuff now.
My goodness. Like,
I
well,
mean,
I think of Night
we
Mother.
never stopped. We
Yeah,
never stopped.
you guys did Night Mother in the small space.
Yeah,
But you
yeah.
did Once Upon a Mattress and played Fred on the main stage. You
Uh-huh.
would be in A Cat on a Hot Tin Roof playing Big Mama, and yet you were the mother superior in Nonsense. It was
Yeah.
just this kind of weird.
It was just kid. I always say kid in a candy store. Every show that I have ever loved, every part I have ever wanted, and I got to go there. I got to, for the most part, I got everything that I set out for there.
Yeah, yeah.
And thank God I did, because every one of them was, you got to the point where you just wanted to be so good and so different
Right.
for our audiences, because our audiences, they were and are amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
They loved being there, and they loved seeing us trade off and be one thing one month and the next something completely different the next month, and
Yeah.
how we could change how we sound and look. And I loved it. I
Yeah.
loved it.
I came there in '90, and of course, the first thing I got the chance to see you in is I saw you play Bazzard in The Mystery of Edward Drood, which
Yeah.
is a role written for a man, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you are like, you know, in my mind from the house, a friend of mine said, "Hey, I do interning up the Pollard. I want you to come see the show." I'm stoked. I'm sitting on the audience, eyes wide. I'm looking at what I assume is a 5-foot actress. And this interesting thing, I can still see it in my mind, the shuffle you did with your feet, just the way you'd kind of, it was almost like a cartoon character. It was so specific to the why I oughta kind of quality. And I remember thinking, I cannot not watch her. Like, she comes in and she's in hiding in the big Dick Datchery costume, and it's all you can do is you're like, yeah, everybody else be quiet. I want to see what she's gonna say. See, and then you're playing Daisy, and then you're, it just was, it was a lesson in, you got to make big bold choices, and you don't get to sit back on the laurels of what you just closed, because
No,
nobody cares
no,
at that point. Yeah.
no. As a matter of fact, it it's it puts the pressure on you to be better,
Yeah.
to always be better than your last role.
Right.
I mean, they always say you're always as good as your last role. No, you're not. No, you're not.
Yeah.
No, you're always as good as you want to be, and you're always as good as you make yourself be.
Right. Right. Oh, it's a masterclass, friends. It's a masterclass. I hope you're writing notes, young ones, to be, seriously, because it's, it's one of the reasons why we wanted to do this, because somebody needs to document these incredible careers, and yours is right up there, and there's so much to be taught. So I'm curious, you're doing the stuff at the Pollard, and there's we could do a show just about the Pollard. What did you do there that frightened you most, that you were afraid to tackle?
I think the very first time I did Daisy, very first time I did Driving Miss Daisy, that was, I wanted it. I wanted it so bad. And then I got it, and then I was terrified of it
Right.
because it's one thing to be a little old lady. It's another thing to be a little old lady who ages to where she ages,
Right.
and to make that believable. It's also, she's she's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
She's not an easy nut to crack.
Right.
And when I first read her, I wasn't quite sure. I mean, I wanted to play her, but I wasn't really sure I liked her.
Right.
So I had to really do some soul searching and find what about her is about me. Do I have those feelings? How many times have I said, I'm not prejudiced, but I can say something that's, or feel something that's, could be interpreted that way.
Right. Right.
It taught me a lot. And it's only an hour and a half show. And
Right.
it scared me to death. But
Right.
that was probably the one. There were others that I felt like, well, obviously Funny Girl.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
Because I worked hard for that one. I mean,
Yeah.
I was in voice lessons for 6 months. I was taking aerobics classes 2 or 3 times a week. I
Oh.
was working myself into an early grave because I knew that everybody that walked into that theater was going to be sitting there going, okay, okay, hot ass, show us Barbara
You
Streisand.
signed up. Let's go to
Yeah,
town.
let's see what you got.
Wow.
And my job, because I did so many of those, I did so many shows that had been played by somebody else
Mm-hmm.
famously. That was probably the biggest one. And I said, I'm not going to be her.
Right.
I'm not Barbara Streisand. God knows I'm not Barbara Streisand. But you know what? Barbara Streisand's not me right now either.
Boom. Yeah.
So I'm going to do my job. I'm going to do my job, my interpretation of who this woman is. And I read books and saw films and newsreels of her. I did everything I could and put everything I had into that.
Yeah.
And some people loved it. Some people hated it. That's not my problem.
Right.
My problem was to do my job, and I did, I think.
It was such a dream come true for me. It was an early role that I got to be in, playing God, I want to say Eddie.
Yeah.
And I got to watch you, but I wish that everybody could have what I had, in the lesson being, if you want to know what it takes to carry a show, you need to watch this experience. You need to watch this process, because I hadn't known that you had been working privately on voice, and you and I think it was Bill Higgins were getting
Yeah.
together. You were dancing, you were singing, you were going over all of Fanny Bryce's stuff. Not to mention there's an exploding glass table that fell on you. You fell off a staircase. Like, it just was like, you want to know what it takes to carry a show? Walk on stage after Brenda's fallen off a staircase, comes on to do the scene, barely registers that anything has happened, and she was knocked unconscious for a second or two. That's what it takes to carry a show. It goes on. You were a force of nature in that piece of theater.
Well, falling off the staircase, I was laying there on the ground, and all of a sudden I heard my music coming on, and I still had a costume change to make. I wasn't sure, but I thought I had broken my leg. But I got up and I could walk. I had broken the heel off of my shoe, so I played the rest of the second act with only one heel on one shoe. I got up, I changed clothes, and I got out there, and I think I worked about 10 times harder. I didn't want it to show.
Right.
Because at that point, the only people that knew that it had happened were the people that I landed on.
Right.
And myself. And I didn't want anybody else to know. I was embarrassed that had happened to me.
Yeah.
I was mortified. I was so mad at myself that I was like, screw it. I'm going to just get out there and kick butt and see what happens later. If I'm dragging my leg halfway home, that'll just happen later.
You were caught by Chris, Jared, and our
Yeah.
late friend Brandy Bynum, and boy, that they were like, she's out there. She's physical. Yeah, it was. I didn't, and I had no idea. They're telling me this backstage, and I didn't know that you'd fallen. Like, they were explaining to me what had happened, and I was like, "You're kidding me." I couldn't tell a thing.
Yeah, I was standing up at the top of the staircase. It was the end of the number, and I just happened. I got a little blinded by the spotlight, and I just took a wrong turn and went over the back of the staircase. Fell about 8 feet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Frightening. And yet,
but I am mighty.
And yet I would point to that example.
Throw her off scenery and she'll still finish the act.
She still goes on. It's an example I would point to time and time again. It was such a masterclass, and you get it done. You work hard, you get it done, and you don't. There's no fear. There's no quit. It's extraordinary.
And there's no understudy.
Yeah, that too.
Then there's that.
That's still the Pollard method. You're also directing more at Pollard.
Yeah.
You started, pulling together some really interesting pieces of theater as a director, and you're kind of building that language. Which, tell me a little bit about the path to becoming a director, and why does it matter to you as an artist, but maybe specifically as an actor? How does it make you a better actor?
When you're directing, you're in charge. You have to do everything. You have to see not only the little picture, but the big picture. And it's your job to not only make sure that everything is built correctly and where you need it, you have to make sure your actors feel safe and your actors feel confident in you, that you're not going to let them screw up. It's your job to make them the best actor that they can be. Mm-hmm. And by seeing people struggle or seeing people have difficulty with roles where you're able to talk them through it, it changes your perspective as an actor. Mm-hmm. It lets you, like I said before, I can step outside of myself and see what works. I can feel it. Mm-hmm. I can feel when it's right, when the timing is correct. I wasn't as adept at that until I started seeing actors bring that to me. I mean, there's nothing that I love more than being surprised as a director. saying, I need you to do this. And then they get up and give you something different, but it's better than what you thought and better than the idea you had. Yeah, surprise me all you want. I love that.
Yeah.
Um, just the other end of the creative spectrum. You, as a director, you know this. You are the director. You are the scene designer. You are the lighting designer. You are the props person. But you're also every actor up on that stage. You have to be. You have to perform that in your head, and before you can give it to an actor to take away from you.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't help but become a better actor. You become more in touch with your own feelings, your own ways of communication.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you certainly become more empathetic.
Right.
You can you can see where someone is struggling, and you know how to fix it. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I get from it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, obviously worked on a lot of great pieces of theater at Pollard and beyond. I mean, because you're continuing to hone your skills and sharpen, your skills at the whetstone of that is the Pollard and your colleagues there. And then you make this move into academia, into working with creating a new generation of artists.
Yeah,
Um, that's got to be a different set of muscles altogether.
it is. It is. A friend of mine at Classen School of Advanced Studies had a sixth grade acting class that they didn't have anybody to teach, and he asked me if I was willing to do this. Um, I had 36 kids in a good room, and I'd already taught at Children's Theater. I'd already taught a little bit at Lyric Academy, so I kind of knew somewhat. But wow, in public school, well, that's a whole different world.
Right.
Um, but I fell in love. I did. I fell in love because the way those kids' minds work and their fearlessness and they're willing to go for it. Now, Class in SAS is a specific school where these kids come in and they declare that they want to be an actor when they are in sixth grade.
Wow. Wow.
That was me. That
Yeah.
was me. If I'd had Class in SAS when I was a kid, I don't know where I'd be right now. Probably the same place. But anyway, uh, I loved that thought. That was me. I had that same hunger. I had that same desire as those kids did. So I went in and I started off with one class. The next year I had three classes. The next year I was full time. And I loved it. I just loved it. I loved teach what I always call it, teacher replacement. I'm teaching somebody, there might not be another De Niro or another Streep in this room, but there's going to be this kid,
Mm-hmm.
and there's going to be that kid,
Hmm.
and they've got it going, and they can keep. I still have contact with those kids. This has been 20 years.
Wow.
They're working professionally. Two of them are in New York. One of them's out in LA. I still have a lot of contact with these kids, and I that's when I started teaching full time. I really thought, I couldn't really give everything I had to two places because I was
Right.
still at
Still at
Pollard,
Pollard, yeah.
so I couldn't really give. But the Pollard was younging up. I like to say, it was becoming younger.
Yeah.
It was. It was growing up, and I thought it was fabulous, and I loved it. But I wanted to really give this a chance.
Yeah.
Really wanted to give the teaching a chance. So that's when I decided that I would leave the Pollard and go as a full-time teacher,
Wow.
which I did for the
Yeah.
next 18 years.
Man, it's weird when you could say something that's, this went on for 20 years or this went on for 18.
Yeah.
18 years of building new philosophies and acting and what it means to be a performer. Because, ultimately the whole point of this project that Plugged In is that I think, much like I sat and looked at the picture of Ben Vereen and Pippin, some young kid is going to be looking at Pollard photos or looking at this video, and they're going to say, that's what I want to be. I'm this tall, I'm bubbly and bright, and I want to be a comedian, but who can also do other stuff, but nobody's going to let me do both. And then they're going to come across this and go, wait a minute, how that can be done?
Hey, if a short, chubby girl with bad eyes can make it and be a professional actor,
Mm-hmm.
everybody can do this. I mean, it all comes from your heart. It's what you love, and if you love it, you're going to go for it.
Yeah.
If you don't love it enough, you'll be able to tell because it'll hurt too bad to stay with it. But if you love it enough, you'll take that hurt and you'll turn it into something positive.
Mm.
That hurts. I didn't get that job. Well, I wonder why I didn't get that job. Well, let's think about what I did. Let's work on some of those skills.
Yeah.
Next job, maybe I'll get.
Yeah.
You always got to keep pushing, keep trying.
Is that how you're hoping to shape the students that you've worked with up until this point? Is that the advice you give them?
It is. I have a lot of, and it's hard right now because kids are different
Right.
than what I was. I mean, their attention spans are much smaller. Their focus is on their phone or on their technology, and it's difficult to get them to tap in to their emotions. It's difficult to get them to tap into the truth. Get up there and tell the truth. Don't get up there and act for me. Get up there and tell the truth. Tell your character's truth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's difficult because there a lot of kids that want to do this are afraid of looking silly. It's like, look silly. Mess up, fail. This is where you learn.
Mm-hmm.
The best teacher is failure. You're always going to learn more by your mistakes than your successes.
Right.
So use the time. Don't be afraid to look silly. Don't be afraid to let those tears fall. Don't be afraid to get angry or frustrated because that's who you are and that's what you use. Those are your tools.
Say that again, sister.
And when you learn how to use your tools, then you're a craftsman.
I'm hoping you're writing it down, people. You can rewind this; it's easy. So kind of a continuation on that thought, or the way I kind of like to wrap up that thought. So make this more specific. Yes, you're giving this advice to your students, but I'd like you to talk specifically to Brenda Williams' successor, or you can say the younger version of you, if that helps. But what do you tell that girl whose journey is just like yours, who has the same insecurities, the same fears? What's the takeaway at this phase of your career, and how do you get there, and how do you navigate to it?
I would say you are who you are. You can't change that. I can't change my height. I can't change the way I look. But what I can do is I can believe in what I want. I can believe in what I love. And I can make this happen. You can't sit there and say, "Oh, I don't want to do this, but I'm afraid of it." No. At some point, no matter how afraid of it you are, you got to pull up your bootstraps, put on your big girl panties, and you got to go to work. And something I would also tell Miss B when she was a younger child, you will never stop learning. You will never stop trying to be better. You will always look for that extra spark, that extra something that you bring to the table, because nobody is you except you. Barbara Streisand isn't me. Sometimes you just got to have the balls to say it.
Hell yeah. That's great advice. I hope there are a lot of people listening, because I know there are a lot of young people, including myself, who could have used that advice coming.
Oh, me too.
Yeah. So I have become a huge fan of closing these things out with the Binad Pivot questionnaire, because I think they're so telling, and it kind of lets us into a little bit of the private part of these artists that we're so blessed to have on the show. So if you don't mind, I want to ask those questions now and start
Sure.
with, what is your favorite word?
Dandy.
Dandy.
I like dandy. When somebody says, "How you doing?" I like to say, "Dandy." I just think it's a fun word.
Like it. And what is your least favorite word?
Oh, it's more of a phrase, and I think you will understand why. Please and thank you.
Oh, it's one phrase.
I always hated that, and I'll tell you why. I
Please do.
think you ought to have the good grace to say, "Please do something for me," and then to come back and say thank you after
For
it's
doing it.
done,
Yeah.
instead of just assuming it's going to get done. Please and thank you. Oh, I hate that.
Yes. And we have experience with that phrase.
Oh boy, do we ever.
uh, what turns you on creatively, spiritually, emotionally?
Ah, waking up in the morning,
Hmm.
getting another chance.
Amen. For sure. What turns you off?
Ah, meanness.
Yeah.
Just
I
plain being mean for no damn reason. I don't like that.
dig it. What is your favorite curse word?
Fuck. It's an all-purpose word. It's a noun. It's a verb. It's an adverb. It's an adjective. I mean, you can use it you can use it positively. "Oh, you sweet little fuck," or you can get mean. "Fuck you." I mean, it's just there's variations. It's a great word. Love it,
Really is a great word.
and
And it's
I use it a lot.
it is actually, I think, our most popular word
I
so far.
I would think so. I think you have to be able to use the word if you're going to be in theater.
That's for sure. What sound or
Like we have to
noise?
be on fuck.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah, really. What sound and noise do you love?
Rain.
Yeah.
Love the sound of rain.
And what sound and noise do you hate?
Ah, an animal in pain.
Yeah. Um, what profession, other than the ones that you've done, other than your own, would you like to attempt?
Travel photographer.
Hmm.
I would love to just go to all these places and just take pictures.
Yeah. You've gone to Italy. You that's one of your places
Yeah.
that you love to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a dream of mine. It's on my list. I'm
Oh,
gonna
you should. I've always said that New York is like walking into a movie set, but Italy is like walking into a romance novel.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I can see that. I
Yeah.
can totally see that. What profession would you not like to try at all?
Politician.
Fair. And finally,
Uh,
if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
ah, your mom and dad are waiting at the bar.
Yeah, I'm down with that. I'm down with that. Miss B, you're an extraordinary artist, and I am so grateful that you are my friend. And I thank you for coming on and sharing your story, because I think there's a whole lot of young artists, male, female, that are going to benefit from the things you've had to say. I've benefited today from listening to you, and I hope we can do this again sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to be in the same room as some of my friends. I can't wait until this is all over where I can hug necks. And
Ugh, the wine is on me on that night.
I hear you. I hear
Yeah.
you.
Thank you much, and we will do this again.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Hi, I'm Brenda Williams. I'm an artist, and I am plugged in.